So I'm joined today by Matthew Kamakani Lynch, one of our international keynote speakers for INCOSE IS's 33rd International Symposium to be held this year in Honolulu, Hawaii from the 15th to the 20th of July. Welcome, Matthew. Great to have you on board.
Thanks so much, JB. It's great to be here.
I must admit, I'm really excited to talk to you and also looking forward to listen to you. But could you tell us a bit about your career background and motivation for your personal transformation to refocus your energies on community-based sustainable development projects?
So my background, it's colorful, it's varied, and professionally, I embarked on a career in finance at the tender age of 19. So I actually worked for Bank of America, and then over the course of the next 10 years, worked for smaller and smaller finance companies before eventually starting my own firm here in Honolulu that was specialized in real estate, debt, and asset management. And of course, we all remember, most of us here probably remember the crash of 2008. At the time, I was being flown around the state giving lectures on how to survive the mortgage market meltdown. So it's quite ironic that I was one of the first companies to close down. And it was a very humbling lesson for a young man that was probably very much so overconfident of his own abilities. I embarked literally on a soul search. Moved back to Australia, my father's homeland, and embarked on the study of permaculture, and that is, how do we move towards permanent agriculture systems? How do we learn from traditional and indigenous systems of the past to be able to create lasting agro systems that can feed and nourish people for generations and generations? And so that I like to think of as my introduction to systems thinking. So I've worked in Mongolia, I've worked in the South Pacific, I've worked in Southeast Asia, working with communities that are experiencing firsthand the impacts of climate and are being relocated or having to relocate due to climate, and solving for their specific context with the resources that they have available on the ground. And then I was invited by the University of Hawaii to essentially help establish their sustainability policy and an integrated sustainability program system-wide across 10 campuses of our university system here.
Thanks, Matthew. That's absolutely fascinating and interesting too to see how your career evolved and changed and grew over time. So I wanted to really ask you then, from a systemic perspective, what do you see as some of the approaches that we would employ in order to overcome some of these challenges and make us, make the planet more sustainable in that regard?
That's a big question, JB. Yeah, it's interesting. There's so much genius in nature's systems, and even the paradigm of us looking out at nature and forgetting that we are actually a part of nature speaks to the root causes of how we find ourselves in this challenging situation in the first place. So we have a mental paradigm or construct which does not recognize any limits to growth, that is nested within essentially a finite system, our planetary system. So if you think about Vanilla Meadows, places to intervene in a system, the places we most often intervene at the top of that list being things like taxes, subsidies, the things that we spend so much time and resources on in our society today, and yet Meadows lists it as the least impactful place to intervene in a complex system. At number 2 of that list is the goals of the system. And SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, it's embedded in the word, is pitched right there. So it has much higher transformative potential in Meadows' framework. And number 1 place that she lists is the mindset or paradigm out of which the goals, rules of the system, everything else arise. So for me, the essence of our work, in order to be able to work effectively across scales, it's a fractal. We have to be able to work at the personal scale and as well as at the planetary scale.
That's absolutely fascinating and exciting. Matthew, I really am looking forward to hearing your keynote presentation at IS in your beautiful home state of Hawaii, and all the best with your truly transformational initiatives. Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you so much. It's truly an honor.